It was the night of my wedding, and I was beyond happy. This marriage was of my choosing, one I pursued against my family's wishes. My family disapproved because I was marrying a woman twice my age. My wife was 45 years old, but her beauty was so radiant that she didn't look her age at all. I had fallen deeply in love with her, enough to go against my parents and bring her to my other house as my bride. Now it was time for me to go to the bedroom where my wife awaited me, but my heart was pounding with anxiety. I felt immense pressure. Could I prove my masculinity to a woman of her age? The fear of falling short consumed me. I spent some time pacing in the lounge, gathering courage, and finally I stepped into the room. My 45-year-old wife, Shanaz, greeted me with a charming smile. Her smile was so captivating that I couldn't take my eyes off her. The dimples on her cheeks added even more allure to her already mesmerizing beauty. Adorned in an expensive outfit and jewelry, she looked even more stunning than before. As I sat near her, words failed me. I didn't know how to start a conversation. But before I could say anything, Shanaz leaned forward, embraced me tightly, and held me in her arms. I never expected such boldness from her, but she was my wife, and it was her right to act that way. I reciprocated her embrace. We didn't exchange words. She seemed restless, as though she wanted to merge entirely with me. Then she made a request that left me stunned. I realized how emotional and passionate she was. I had married her for her outward charm, but now I was becoming aware of her inner longing. She handed me a pill and said, "Take this. Without it, you won't be able to fulfill my desires." I felt embarrassed and replied that I didn't need any medicine as I was a healthy young man. But she insisted, and I eventually took the capsule from her. As soon as I consumed it, I began to sweat profusely. Shahnaz unbuttoned my shirt with her own hands and began making peculiar demands. To please her, I complied with everything she asked for. That night, I found myself pushed to my limits. She kept making requests, and I kept fulfilling them. By the end of the night, I was utterly exhausted. But she was insatiable. The sun rose, but she still wanted more. She forcibly laid me on the bed again to continue. I was happy to be with her, but at one point I was so drained that I asked for a moment of rest. She smiled and went to the washroom. I was equally content and smiled as I turned over. Shanaz's phone lay next to her pillow. Out of curiosity, I picked it up and unlocked it without any particular intention. But what I saw left me shaken. One after another, I opened things on her phone and it felt like the ground beneath me had vanished. It seemed as if the sky had fallen on me. My wife, in her pursuit of desires, had been with two other men before me. Another day, as I was leaving my bungalow for the office, a woman collided badly with my car. Surprisingly, the car wasn't moving fast, so I couldn't fathom how the accident happened. I angrily scolded the driver and stepped out of the car myself. The woman sat on the ground, clutching her leg. Her scarf had fallen to the road, revealing her femininity. Her silky black hair cascaded over her shoulders, and my gaze instinctively fixed on her. She couldn't stand on her own, so I extended my hand to help her. She held my hand tightly and got up, bringing us very close to each other. The sweet scent of her perfume enveloped me, and I found myself intoxicated by it. When I saw her face, I was utterly captivated. She was so breathtakingly beautiful that I forgot to blink. She asked me for directions to an address. Even then, she was very close to me, holding my arm tightly, perhaps struggling to stand upright. It was still lying on the ground when she covered herself with her scarf and bent down to pick up her purse. Quickly, I stepped forward, grabbed the purse, and handed it to her. She thanked me, let go of my hand, and took a step back. I noticed a limp in her step. Concerned, I asked about her foot, but she replied, "It's nothing. You didn't do it intentionally, after all." Then she added, "I was just trying to find this address. If you know it, could you help me out?" I didn't know much about the area or where specific houses were located, so I suggested she ask the driver. Limping, she walked over to him, showed him a piece of paper, and exchanged a few words. Then she continued on her way, presumably after getting directions from him. Even now, she was walking with a noticeable limp. I called out to her, took out some cash from my wallet, and offered it to her, suggesting she use it for her treatment. But she looked at me with a strange disdain and said, "I am not a beggar. Besides, the accident wasn't your fault, it was mine." I was so caught up in searching for the address that I was looking at nameplates on gates rather than paying attention to the road. She refused to take the money and thanked me before walking away. I called after her again, saying, "I didn't mean to insult you." She was so beautiful that I was looking for any excuse to talk to her again. She turned and looked at me with her large dark eyes and said, "It's okay. Boys like you act this way. It's just youthful blood. Money can make one arrogant, I understand." Her words set me ablaze. I took 2 quick steps toward her and said, "No, absolutely not. I am not drunk on wealth. I am an honorable man, and I can see you're injured. I just want to help with your treatment. Please see my intentions as genuine and not as arrogance or pride." She looked me up and down, then replied, "Thank you, but I don't need your money." She hurried off, still limping. I was also running late, so I simply watched her walk away and got into my car. But her beautiful face remained etched in my mind. She might have been older than me, but her beauty defied her age. Lost in thoughts of her, I reached my office where a busy day awaited me. I had to conduct several interviews and hire a secretary since my previous one had recently gotten married and left. I was determined to hire an older woman this time to avoid the issue of someone quitting due to marriage. The frequent change in secretaries had caused me a lot of trouble. Sitting in my office, I conducted interview after interview, but all the candidates were young, fresh-faced girls. I needed someone experienced, and I was growing increasingly frustrated. Finally, I called in the last candidate, and as soon as she entered the room, I was stunned. It was the same woman who had collided with my car. Hurriedly, I looked at the file in my hands and checked her biodata. Her name was Shanaz, and she was 45 years old. Reading her age, I was astonished because she didn't look anywhere near that age. My eyes quickly scanned to her marital status, which read bachelor, and a smile spread across my face. Until a few moments ago, I had been considering hiring a married woman, but now seeing that Shanaz was unmarried made me unexpectedly happy. As surprised as I was to see her, she seemed equally shocked, staring at me with her large, wide eyes. Limping slightly, she sat down on the chair. I asked about her foot, and she hesitantly replied, "It's better now." I immediately ordered juice for her and began reviewing her qualifications. She was a highly educated woman. I couldn't understand why she hadn't married yet and why she was seeking a job. Someone as beautiful as her should have received many marriage proposals. I asked her a few general questions, which she answered calmly. Then I confirmed her hiring on the spot. She seemed surprised because she had demanded a hefty salary, and I had accepted it without hesitation. Perhaps she hadn't expected me to hire her at such a high salary, but I had already decided that I wanted her as my secretary. I had seen her pride and self-respect and trusted her because of it. She started the very next day. Shahnaz stayed with me throughout the day, and I often found excuses to ask her personal questions. She told me she had gotten her siblings married and was now alone. She hadn't married herself due to the responsibilities of arranging her siblings' weddings. Her parents had passed away, and fulfilling those duties had consumed her youth. Now she felt it was too late for her to find a groom, so she had resigned herself to moving forward in life alone. Shahnaz's words often surprised me. She was such an intelligent and composed woman that I would lose track of time while talking to her. Within just 10-15 days, Shahnaz had taken over all the office responsibilities. She understood even the smallest details and managed everything perfectly, from my meeting schedules to other tasks. Everything was in order because of her. One day, Shahnaz didn't come to the office, and I received a message that she was very unwell. Hearing this made me restless. I had grown used to her presence. I instructed my driver to take me to Shahnaz's house. Her home was small, but neat and clean. Shahnaz was lying on the bed. She was surprised to see me and said, "Sir, why did you trouble yourself to come here? This humble house is not worthy of you." Hearing this, I said, "You are here alone in such a serious condition. Where are your siblings?" Suddenly, she grabbed my hand, rested her head on my shoulder, and started crying uncontrollably. Her sobbing was so intense that it left me worried. I asked, "Shahnaz, what's the matter?" She replied, "I've fulfilled all my responsibilities, but now, when it's their turn, my siblings have abandoned me to move forward in their own lives. Whether I'm sick or dying, it makes no difference to anyone. I have no one in this world anymore. She was so close to me that her fragrance was driving me mad, but I controlled myself and gently moved her away. I consoled her, saying, "Please don't cry like this." After that day, I began to take extra care of Shanaz. The bond between us grew stronger, and I started liking her so much that I thought if we got married, I would be the happiest man alive. However, this news reached my father. Some office colleagues had noticed how close Shanaz and I had become, and they relayed this to my father. He tried to stop me and even fired Shanaz from the office. But I couldn't let her go. She was removed from the office, not from my heart. I promised her that I would marry her and give her a good life. My father kept warning me, saying, "Women like her are very cunning. She is twice your age and very shrewd. I know such women well. Don't get caught in her trap. She is surely after your wealth." I told my father, if that were true, she could have taken a lot from me by now, but she hasn't taken a single penny. Even on the day she collided with my car, she didn't take anything from me. Her intentions have never been about my wealth. Still, if you insist, I will test her. Following my father's advice, I declared a meager dowry amount of just 25,000 rupees in the marriage contract. I could have written millions, but I wanted to test her intentions. She had no objections to this. I didn't buy her a house or a car in her name, nor did I give her expensive gold jewelry during the wedding. The jewelry she received was artificial but looked elegant, and she didn't mind that either. I subtly told her that all the property belonged to my father and that I had nothing of my own. I explained that if my father disowned me, I wouldn't be able to give her a single rupee. Even this revelation didn't faze her, and that was the reason I couldn't stop myself from marrying her. However, she insisted, "Don't marry me if it means displeasing your parents. I care deeply about your parents. What will happen if they turn their backs on you? I've spent my entire life yearning for my parents' love, and I don't want you to go through the same pain." But I was so consumed by her love that I crossed every boundary. I convinced her for a court marriage, left my family home, set up another house for her, and brought her there as my bride. On our wedding night, I realized how lonely and broken she had been. She showered me with her love like never before. Her way of loving was so unique that it left me amazed. She even made me take a capsule for strength, and I agreed to everything she said out of love. The next morning, while she was in the washroom, I picked up her mobile phone out of curiosity. What I saw made my soul tremble. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. A few moments later, she came out of the washroom, and I showed her the phone. She probably didn't expect me to check it in such an exhausted state instead of falling asleep. She quickly snatched the phone from my hand, smiled, and said, "This is a keepsake of our beautiful moments. I wanted tonight to be unforgettable for us, so I recorded every moment of it." I angrily asked, "What kind of videos are these where I am the only one and that too in a compromising state? Do you realize such content can be misused and circulated? And who are those two other men whose pictures I saw on your phone? They're just like mine. Who are they?" She was startled by my words because she hadn't expected me to discover everything so soon. She replied, "I don't know what pictures you're talking about. I only recorded your videos so I could watch you when you're at the office." I was furious. "Shanaz, I'm not a fool. I want to know why you did this and who those two men are whose inappropriate pictures are in your phone." She put her phone aside, sat in front of me and said, "I didn't think you'd find out this quickly. But now that you know, let me tell you the truth. Just like you, those two were also my husbands, rich and handsome men. The day I collided with your car, I was actually on my way to meet one of them to collect money. But then fate brought me to you. You seemed attractive and wealthy, so I thought, why not make you my next target?" Hearing this, I was dumbfounded. The sweet-voiced, beautiful woman before me had suddenly transformed into someone completely different. Her voice no longer had its sweetness, and her face no longer held the same charm. Instead, she appeared to be a cunning and manipulative woman. She continued, "On wedding nights, I make these videos to blackmail men and extort money from them. Now I have plenty of compromising videos of you. If you don't comply with my demands and give me the money I ask for, I'll make these videos public. It will ruin you, your father, and your company. You'll spend your life trying to prove your innocence, but society won't let you live peacefully." You'll spend your life trying to prove your innocence, but society won't let you live peacefully. So hand over this house to me, and whenever I ask for money, you'll pay it." In a fit of rage, I grabbed her phone and smashed it against the wall. She laughed and said, "Do you think I'd handle such a big operation alone? I've already sent the videos to my partner. Breaking my phone or harming me won't help you. If anything happens to me, my partner will go to the police and release these videos." Shanaz had me trapped. I sat there silently for a long time, unable to muster the strength to respond. When betrayal comes from someone you trusted blindly, it robs you of even the courage to ask questions. As I left the house, she laughed behind me, saying, "Yet, come back in the evening with the house papers signed in my name." I didn't respond. Instead, I went to my father and, mustering all my courage, told him everything. I had thought my father wouldn't support me, that he'd scold me and throw me out for going against his wishes. But my father proved that parents can forgive every sin and mistake of their children. He didn't bring up the past or remind me how he had warned me. He simply said, "There's no need to be blackmailed by her. Get fake documents for the house. I'll handle the police action from behind the scenes." This time, she messed with the wrong person. Following his advice, I got fake property papers made and went to Shanaz. She was delighted to see them, as she couldn't tell the difference. I also brought food for her, in which I had mixed a sedative. I placed the food in front of her and pretended to eat as well. I acted scared and submissive, assuring her I'd do whatever she wanted, but begged her not to release the pictures. She confidently replied, "Just keep fulfilling my demands and I won't do anything. But if you don't, you'll lose your reputation. Your compromising pictures are safe with me and my partner." I kept my head bowed as she ate the food. Moments later, she fell unconscious. I immediately called the police and a lady constable took her to the station. After some interrogation, she revealed her partner's name, who was also arrested. The two other men she had blackmailed came forward to testify against her. One of them turned out to be from my area. His parents lived abroad, and he had been unable to deal with Shanaz due to the fear of losing his honor. Shanaz and her partner were sentenced to prison. I realized that if I hadn't mustered the courage to confess everything to my father, Shanaz would have continued to blackmail me for the rest of my life, just as she had done to those two men. My father never rubbed my mistakes in my face. Instead, he supported me, which is why I was able to overcome this ordeal. Today, Shanaz and her partner are behind bars, but I remain deeply ashamed in front of my parents. Sometimes, in the blindness of love, we make terrible decisions, but our parents are there to guide us into the right path. That's why it's essential to heed their advice. Shanaz's greed for wealth was so insatiable that she didn't value my genuine love. If she had stayed with me with sincerity, I might have placed the world at her feet. What she demanded was so little compared to what I could have given her. But her greed destroyed her life. Later, I learned that even her siblings had distanced themselves from her because of her obsession with money. She had made their lives miserable. Despite having everything, she succumbed to her greed, ruining not only her life, but also the lives of three men.